Hello everyone. Welcome to this beautiful course Robotics. My name is Muhammad Rishad and I will be your trainer. Before getting started, we can go through the major contents in this course Robotics. First of all, we will discuss basic theory of the robots and then we will go through the different components needed for making different kinds of robots. Both these two sections are basically theory. I think hearing theory will be boring for you. Instead, we can make different kinds of robots in practical approach. Firstly, we will make obstacle avoiding robot, and then we can make line follower robot. I will give you all the codes and hardware parts at the time of every sections. And then we will discuss Bluetooth controlled robot, and then a variety spider robot, and another robot developed by me called humanoid teaching robot. And at last, we can discuss food serving robot for COVID patients. It will be suitable for this situation, is it? Coming to the introduction, what is robot and from where the word robot was came? Robot comes from the word robota, which means forced labor. And also the robotics also comes from in the science fiction in a short story of Runaround by Isaac Asimov. And what is robotics? Robotics is the intersection of the science, engineering, and technology that produces machines called robots that substitute for human actions and keep everyone safe. Also, the robotics involves design, construction, operation, and use of the robots. What are the applications of robotics? At the early times of 2005, about 90% of the robots was used for the automotive factories. Because as we know that early times the robot was used only for manufacturing and assembling these types of robots. Is it? Now we can see that different kinds of robots are available in shops and houses. And also they are used for military purpose, healthcare, and domestic purposes. Now robots are available in very small size and large sizes. You can see that a robot called RoboBee, which has a size only 0.2 millimeter. And also you can see a large robot which has a size about 200 meter long. We can discuss different kinds of microcontrollers used for different purpose. Microcontrollers are selected based on their purposes. So in this course, mainly we will discuss two types of microcontrollers, Arduino Uno and the ESP8266. What are the major components included in the Arduino Uno? The main part or the main controller is the microcontroller. The name of that is Admega 328P. And there are analog pins and digital pins and selected PWM pins available in Arduino Uno, which was the first series of Arduino. And there are 5-volt supply pin and ground, and a power supply, power jack, and a programming USB connector, and a crystal oscillator for the programming purposes. Here there are many components that are not required for our purposes, which means that the board is used for programming. So instead, we can develop or design our own microcontroller for our project. Our second microcontroller is NodeMCU or ESP8266, which has an inbuilt Wi-Fi module in which we can connect our smartphone or laptop, which is used for IoT purpose, in which we can connect different devices in these pins, whatever it is like fan, refrigerator, AC, by using relays, so that you can control these devices by using your smartphone. Our third microcontroller is PIC microcontroller, which are available in different series. Depends on the purpose, you can choose the PIC microcontroller. Next, what are the different series of Arduino microcontrollers, which is available in Nano series, Uno series, and Mega series. So nano and UNO are basically same, but in the case of nano, which is made up of SMD devices or SMD components, which has extra 2 analog pins when compared to UNO. In the case of Mega, there is variety of pins available for depends on your purpose. And the Arduino Uno has about 14 digital I/O pins, and in which 6 is used for PWM purpose, which means these 6 pins are already set for PWM purpose for controlling the motors or like that. 6 pins are set for analog purposes or analog communication for interfacing analog sensors, which is available from or starting from the A0 to A5, and the IO pins starting from 0 to 13 is digital pins, and I have already told you that A0 to A5 are analog pins. This is the basic components inside in an Arduino Uno board. As in the case of a particular project, you may not need to use the different pins. So depends on the purpose, you can design the Arduino Uno board. So you can remove all the unwanted pins from this. I don't want you to think be a complicated. I will show you in simple. This is basically what I told you before, is that while placing the components required only for depends on our purpose, the remaining portion will be only like this. All other portions are not needed. While coming to the microprocessors, there are different microprocessors available in the market. The major advantage of this microprocessor is that we can expand the peripherals based on our project. In this course, we will make robot by using a Raspberry Pi. Actually, the size of this Raspberry Pi board is only the size of ATM card. We can connect keyboard, monitor and SD card in this. In this SD card, we can flash a ROM or OS like Raspbian for running this Raspberry Pi. So actually it is an CPU. We can use the same purpose of CPU. Next processor is AMD processor. We can see these Ryzen type processors are available in laptops. Next processor is ARM processors, which are mainly used in the smartphones. Difference between microcontrollers and microprocessors. The major difference between the microcontroller and microprocessor is that the microcontroller is fixed. The peripherals and RAM, ROM, everything are fixed. As in the case of microprocessor, the peripherals can be expanded. The memory can be expanded, depends on our purposes. Also, the microprocessor based systems require more hardware because it is somewhat bulky and more power is needed for that. And as in the case of the microcontroller, which need only less amount of power because the things or the components are fixed and which are designed to utilize maximum power. The microprocessor has many instructions to move data between the memory and CPU, but as in the case of the microcontroller, it has 1 or 2 instructions to move data between memory and CPU. As I have told you that the microprocessor is more flexible when compared to the microcontroller. While building different kinds of robots, we require power, is it? Sometimes we require direct power from the 220, or sometimes we require batteries. By using this variable, we can change or fix the voltage as it depends on our devices. So from this SMPS, we will connect to the buck converter, to many buck converters, and then we will set different voltages like 3 volt, 9 volt or 5 volt, which are utilized by different components. One thing you should note is that there will be a switch available in SMPS which has 2 options. One is the 110 American standard and 220 Indian standard. So be sure that the switch is in the 220 position. What is inside the SMPS, or what is the working behind that? We know that the full form of SMPS is switched mode power supply, which is operated by switching, and hence the voltages vary continuously, which means that the pulses, the changing pulses is used for controlling the voltages. Okay. And this switching time is adjusted by adjusting the duty cycle. In this device, the energy conservation and regulation is provided by power semiconductors, which are continuously switching on and off with high frequency. So that high frequency switching is used in this SMPS.